Drivers are the building blocks of the future. Foresight projects can be organized into 3 buckets of activity: researching, storing, and implementing. Drivers are the bridge between researching and storing. They are the synthesis or deliverable of the researching phase, and the inputs or foundation of the storing phase. We create a domain map to organize our search for change. Horizon scanning looks for broad signals of change, and TIPPOs, trends, issues, plans, projections, and obstacles, identify specific types of information about the future. We synthesize this work into a set of drivers. We then use the drivers as the main ingredients of our scenarios in storying. But wait, before we go any further, what exactly do we mean by driver? A driver is a thematic cluster of related inputs, scan hits and TIPPOs in our case, that is driving or shaping change in a domain that we are exploring. In a typical project, we identify a few hundred scan hits and another 100 or so TIPPOs. When it's time to create drivers, we review these inputs and cluster them into related themes, and go through a few rounds of consolidation, prioritization, and come up with the final set. We aim for around a dozen drivers in our projects, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Most often this is a group process. Different perspectives help to ensure you have a set of drivers that adequately represents the domain. While we are in the research phase, sometimes we see a theme of change early on. That's fine, make a note of it. And when we get to driver creation, we review our research and make sure there is some actual evidence for the driver that we think we saw early on. Once we have our drivers, we're ready to begin storying. Basically, any scenario technique needs data to project from. We found that we can use drivers to work with any of the various scenario techniques out there. Our experience is that it is very difficult to build a scenario story directly from hundreds of inputs. The drivers give us a manageable number of inputs to work with and get started. And we can go back to our hundreds of inputs and salt them in later in the process. Let's take a look at the drivers I crafted for Imagining After Capitalism. I have been doing the research for years, so I had a lot of research to synthesize. One framework that futurists use to help organize our approach to a lot of data is STEEP: social, technological, economic, environmental, and political categories. In my case, I decided to keep the number of drivers small, and I made sure I had at least one from each STEEP category. It turned out that 7 drivers emerged that I feel did a great job highlighting the changes now underway that are driving us towards an after-capitalism future. Well, that's the story behind drivers, the bridge between research and story, and I would argue they are the key building blocks of our futures. For more information about crafting the future, be sure to look at my other videos. I'm looking forward.